First, it was radios, then TV sets, and then cameras, calculators, and cars. Sometimes, it seems, we import everything from Japan. What's next? Well, maybe our next Japanese import will be a relaxing new idea. Maury Oliker reports.
It's a new idea for us, but the Japanese have been doing it for centuries. Bathing. Slow, hot, relaxed. Ritual bathing. In Japan, everyone does it, even the very young. This is a soap commercial made for Japanese television.
It's very, very popular in Japan. I think about 30% of Japan's house has their own domestic bath, and the rest of 70% of people using the public bath. Once you know the Japan type of bath, I'm sure they like it.
Japanese who live in our country are eager to spread the word. Miami tour guide Masami Ishikawa.
I have one bath in my house, but I go to public baths very often, and I enjoy it. And I wish I have one in Miami.
Redwood hot tubs have been very popular in California, where Japanese influence is strong. Now they're showing up in South Florida.
I believe you'll find that you'll see a spa or hot tub almost as often as you'll see a pool.
Miamian Gene Leverett specializes in designing home spas, as he calls them, and he sells his own redwood tubs.
It's a new concept, and I guess you would call it adult toys.
It's a pretty expensive toy. How much does one of these cost?
Oh, you can figure from $3,000 to $5,000, depending on how they're set up, the size, and the location.
Now, tell me a little bit about this thing you're sitting in. What does it do?
Well, this particular one is the new concept, which is the California Redwood hot tub. And literally, it's water. It comes from, the concept comes from the wine country. They've been using redwood tanks for storing wine for many, many years. And it makes an ideal container for hot water and people.
If you're rich, you can carry the idea to extremes. We filmed this scene on the terrace of an apartment in a luxury Miami Beach high-rise.
Keep the temperature at 108.
If you have the money, you can also do your bathing at one of the posh health spas springing up all over the place. This one is the Cricket Club.
It's one of our main attractions. Most people go there to relax. It's also used for socializing. About 8 to 10 people can fit in there. And most of these members are friends, so they come here to socialize and relax together.
But don't fall for claims that bathing is a substitute for exercise. It has no magical health-giving properties. That warning from spa director Joe Brownholtz.
It's an adjunct to exercise. You feel good after you exercise if you get into a whirlpool. But the truth of the matter is you'd feel just as good if you took a hot shower. And anyone who makes claims above and beyond that, I think, is being a little less than honest.
Here's another way to get into the bath. Find a rental apartment with a whirlpool. Residents at Banyan Bay in Miami had nothing but praise for theirs.
Delicious. Best massage in the world.
Well, it just feels like a pleasant pressure, sort of bubbling up on you, but it makes you itchy after a while. You keep it in the same spot. You have to move around.
That's when it's nicest to come out, is at night when it cools down, the air cools down, and then you get into the whirlpool. It's fun. You come out with a bunch of friends and you get a couple bottles of wine, party a little. That's good too.
And if you want a hot tub in your own backyard, you can have that too. They're even showing up as options on new homes, like here at Lazarus Townhouses in Pembroke Lakes.
I want to show you the jacuzzi pool that we've added as an option to these homes. And it's just not only is it a lot of fun, but it's also for health purposes. It has 3 or 4 speeds.
And finally, something for the traditionalist. If you prefer to bathe in the privacy of your own bathroom, well, that's fine too. But you can do it in style.
Key West is turning back the clock, back to the days when the island city exuded charm and innocent elegance. Tonight, we'll look at the careful restoration of Key West's old conch homes and its once dilapidated downtown. We'll also see how your favorite cartoon characters come to life. And Joe Abril will meet the author of the controversial bestseller, It Didn't Start with Watergate. These are the scenes we bring together for tonight's montage. Good evening, I'm Ralph Rennick. Key West is prospering where other Florida cities are not. Its downtown and older residential areas are thriving and tourists are flocking. The city's growth is linked to a restoration project. Nancy Solomon reports.
In 1850, Key West was the richest city per capita in the United States, a mecca for sunken ship salvagers. In later years, a retreat for American presidents, and always a quaint little island town. But economic and natural disasters hit the city, and its main thoroughfare, Duval Street, started decaying. It stayed that way until 1973, when the street got a shot in the arm. A restoration had begun. Its purpose? To bring residents and tourists downtown and to revive the city's past.
On the corner here you see Sloppy Joe's Bar, which was one of Ernest Hemingway's more favorite places. They opened up the back room of this place and they found the manuscript to Islands in the Stream. And it's such fabulous buildings that you find here in the lower section of Duval Street that gave us our incentive to come down here and get involved in a restoration, because this is one of the most unique situations in the United States in that so many of the buildings are still here.
This is a photograph of Duval Street taken recently.
Chris Beland and his partner Ed Swift thought Duval Street should mirror the city's past, reflecting the late 1800s when Key West was in its heyday. So they got together a group of investors and purchased one building at a time. Those investors included merchants who had remained on the street.
We actually got into the work ourselves, bodily and physically. We worked Sundays, early in the morning, late in the evening. We're tearing out storefronts, and it's been fantastic. It's been very rewarding, Nancy. I know in our shop we've had the most fantastic year we've had since Cuba closed, really.
Swift and Beland's theory is, Old-fashioned stores will bring tourists as well as residents back downtown. So they dug through history books searching for late 1800s styles to pattern their newly acquired stores after. Nearly all their small shops are now outlined with a decorative wood pattern used in the 1800s called gingerbread. But restoring oftentimes means more than decorating or painting. In Swift's and Beland's case, it meant reconstructing from the ground up.
And the buildings are completely restored from the ground up. We jack the building up, replace from 6 feet down to the footers, re-pour the foundations, and then drop the building back down. This was Key West's original dirty bookstore, and now it is the Cook's Bazaar. The building was in total collapse when we got it, and it almost fell over the first day we worked on it. But everybody got together and held it up while we tied it off.
Most buildings on Duval Street were built of wood around the turn of the century. Restoration has transformed those structures built decades later.
They never realize that it's a CBS building. They always feel that it's a wooden building, and this is a great pleasure because that's what we intended to do, was to change the CBS building, the concrete building, into an old wooden structure.
Guildhall is a wooden building, but it needed a complete facelift, inside and out. It's now an artist's gallery, a restoration showpiece, and a tribute to the island city's past.
We put on the ceiling a 6-paneled skylight telling the history of Key West in stained glass windows from the days of the Calusa Indians through the days of the Flagler Railroad. That actual balustrade came out of one of the older and famous hotels in Columbus, Georgia. It's all carved mahogany spindles. It's quite a beautiful thing, I think. You'll see as we go down the street the brick planters, the 1890s gas lights, the bus benches, which are original bus benches made from the FEC molds. All of this was done to authenticate Duval Street as closely as possible to what it was back in the 1880s, 1890s, and early 1900s.
Key West received federal money to rejuvenate Duval Street's sidewalks. But restoration is contagious. It's spreading to the city's historic 2-story wooden homes, conch houses. Owner John Palatinas has almost completed restoration on his home. When he started, the 1850s structure looked its age. Now, each day brings another sign of life. 500 spindles were copied and replaced, and long wooden posts were salvaged from a Georgia plantation.
One of the big helps to people who are restoring houses is the fact that the tax reform, the new tax reform law of 1976, does give breaks to people who do restore historic houses in historic districts. So this is a big help, and of course an extra incentive for you to restore an old house. Well, my reason for coming here is that I decided I'd like to retire in Florida, but I think living here is a more exciting, interesting alternative than living in the condominium. So I found this house, fell in love with it, fell in love with Key West, and here I am.
Restoring can be a costly endeavor. It's often cheaper to tear down an old structure or build something new. That's just why Key West Mayor Sonny McCoy created a rehabilitation loan fund, lending Key Westers money at 2% interest to restore their old homes.
It's a housing assistance program, and the alternative would be demolition and having them removed. And a lot of the buildings have a great Key West charm, and we didn't want them destroyed.
Incentives are working. Conch homes on nearly every street of the city's historic section are undergoing a restoration. Key Westers have not torn down their past, but instead slumbering pieces of it are awakening.
All of a sudden, this restoration came about. And it's the most wonderful thing, I believe, that ever happened to Key West. And like you say, it's sort of mushroomed because it's catching on. This one's doing it and that one. And every day you can see the old conch houses with all the beautiful gingerbread coming to life again.
Reviving parts of Duval Street was Chris Beland's and Ed Swift's goal. Restoration caught on in the residential area. Taken by the side of the restored buildings, Swift bought this restored home built in the mid-1800s. The stately structure was once a hospital, once an apartment building, and Swift often runs into people who were either born in his living room or who once lived there.
We've destroyed very little, and certainly in the last 15 years we've destroyed nothing of our past, and we're proud of that, and I hope we can keep it up forever.
Not only shops, but businesses are being restored. A once run-down service station is now an old-fashioned train depot on Duval Street. The conch trains carry sightseeing tourists, increasing in numbers since the restoration began.
The tourists are an added attraction. The local people coming down thrills me, because years ago Duval Street was the center of all the activities. I'd like to see it that way again. I think we will. Well, I think the thing that I feel the proudest of is the reaction of the community to what we've done. I don't think a day goes by that someone doesn't come up to me and say, hey, you know, it's really nice, and it's very exciting, or, you know, I saw that new building you just finished, and that's beautiful.
Many Key Westers say restoration, preserving the past, and building for the future is the best thing that ever happened to their city. Cartoon characters seem to leap right out of somebody's imagination and onto the screen. But have you ever wondered what makes Mickey Mouse move and Road Runner run? We're going to show you how an animated cartoon is made.
Froggy went a courting and he did right, sword and a pistol by his side, Froggy went a courting and off he'd go on a big red horse with a man on motor, Put on up to Miss Mousie's door, Holler to her loud and sure,
The cartoon segment you just saw is the opening of Froggy Went A-Courtin', created by Miami and Frank Gladstone. The 27-year-old animator works as a virtual one-man band. He draws his original characters using a chart and a hand-sculpted model for reference. Frank also uses his face as a tool to bring life to his characters.
To get an expression, animators will use a mirror if they're perplexed about how their character should look. So they'll do the action right in a mirror, like, "Hi, mouse." And I'll do that several times, "Hi, mouse," to get it down. And that's why some of the people say my frog looks a lot like me.
Took Miss Mouse upon his knee, said, "My dear, will you marry me, Oh, we can live so happily way down yonder in a hollow tree,
Well, ask my Uncle Rat's consent, He'll answer yes, I'm confident. May we get married Friday night?
Why, sure, okay, it's quite all right,
Oddly enough, the first thing Frank draws is the background. It will remain still, and the characters will move against it. Sometimes he must provide extra room for running figures.
Okay, this is a long background that's used to give the illusion of movement. We start at a point and we put cells in front, like this horse, and then frame by frame, as we change the cells, we also move the background. And when it's projected, it'll look like the horse is moving, galloping. In this particular scene, we have two that make one background, a foreground and a background, so that some characters could go behind the trees and some go in front.
They decorated swamp and bog, as would befit the mouse and frog, The wedding scene looked very nice, with a chopped little frog and a mouth made of ice,
The rabbit said,
"Now let's begin, Do you take her? Do you take him? To be your partner all through life, I now pronounce you frog and wife.
Since the song dictates this action, it was recorded earlier. Now Frank has to match his images to that music. He makes a visual outline on a storyboard that looks like a comic strip. Each picture here represents a scene in the cartoon. Each finished scene will be comprised of numerous drawings. To keep track of all this, Frank needs an elaborate record. Animators call this a dummy book. Frank has picked drawing number 73A of Froggy and Mouse dancing for us to follow through to completion.
This is what we call the animator's rough, and it's a rough drawing of the characters in the midst of an action. A whole action is roughed out first, and then later I'll take all the roughs and clean them up or erase all the extra lines and make the lines I want to keep hard and firm. The reason I wanted to show you this was to show you how characters are constructed, mostly with circles. For instance, the mouse is is really just 3 circles here. And the all her appendages, her arms and legs, are also just circles and connecting lines. This is her little dress, and so on.
He cleans this sketchy drawing by erasing carefully until it is barely visible. Then he uses smooth, single lines to get a finished product. Next, he makes a pencil test, or home movie, with the simple drawings to see if his characters move realistically. It's also helpful to act out what characters do in order to time their actions correctly. Frank uses a stopwatch and an ability to act that he says is common to all animators.
Okay. And you got to be slightly off the wall, just slightly, because the job a lot of times demands that you be alone for a great period of time, working on little bugs and bunnies and things like that, and deciding how they should walk and how they should act. Once all the things are done, we can put them back onto the light box and flip them to get an idea of what the motion will look like finally. Oh, that's a note to the inker painter on a confusing area in the drawing.
Next comes the work of an inker and opaquer, Kathy Morris. She traces each drawing onto a clear piece of plastic called a cell. When all the lines are inked, she turns the cell over and opaques it, colors it with acrylic paints. The whole process takes more than 1/2 hour for each cell. Painting on the back looks sloppy at first, but when you look at it from the front, it's neat and clean. Let's take a look at this cell as it goes by in the cartoon.
No grander feast has ever been seen, Drank turnip wine, ate black-eyed beans, While a turkey sitting smack in the middle picked up her bow and played on a fiddle,
You got to be really excited to see the stuff move. I think about that question, why the hell am I sitting here drawing all these pictures? But I know that eventually they'll all be put together and they'll move, and that's exciting for me.
This is the finished frame, number 73A. But before Frank could see his characters come alive, each cell from this box of over 2,000 had to be painstakingly matched with its background and photographed, one at a time, to make a movie. It takes 24 of these pictures to make 1 second of time on film. Gladstone's 3-minute cartoon took 3 days to shoot before it was complete. Frank worked over 1,600 man-hours on this project, but he thinks his efforts were worth it. So do we.
Frog and the mouse on the honeymoon, Left the States on the 5th of June, Went across the sea to Rome, stayed for a while and then came home, And now they have a family, A little baby on each knee, A boy and a girl, I do declare, they look like mice, but they have frog hair, Well, that's the end of my little song, Sung it fast so it wouldn't take long, I put the book back on the shelf, and if you want any more, you can sing it yourself.
Good evening, I'm Ralph Rennick. If you're old enough to remember the Great Depression of the 30s, you probably recall the Civilian Conservation Corps, the CCC. It was a make-work project, a way to give people jobs, but it also left a lasting mark on the American landscape, new parks, dams, lakes, and forests. The Depression is just a memory now, but unemployment, especially among young people, is still with us. So the federal government is again trying an old approach to an old problem.
Hey, Ricky, get under here. Put it on your shoulder. Pull it out.
This is a construction site on the Big Cypress Seminole Indian Reservation, some 70 miles west of Fort Lauderdale. The workers, all between the ages of 15 and 18, are summer employees of the Youth Conservation Corps, the YCC.
Kill you.
Today, they're building a chickee, a traditional Seminole Indian structure that will serve as a sun's shelter for a baseball field. They've already cut down the trees and stripped the logs they're using. Now they're starting to assemble the building. Across the street, another group of YCC enrollees is finishing a chickee. They're nailing cabbage palm fans in layers to form a waterproof roof. This structure will provide badly needed shade for a daycare center. A few miles away, still another YCC group is chopping down melaleuca trees. The melaleuca, not native to Florida, is spreading rapidly and killing all other vegetation in its path. It's considered a threat to the ecology of the entire Everglades.
What kind of an impact can you make on this stand that we're in right here?
We'll be able to pull out some of the smaller ones and hopefully pull out some of the roots also, keep them from sprouting. And they might be able to use herbicides in some of the others.
And what kind of an effect do you think that will have on the Big Cypress Swamp as a whole?
Probably to try and keep the trees under control so they don't spread too fast and take over.
So that there's some danger that the melaleucas will take over the Big Cypress entirely, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose.
That's what they say anyway.
Yeah.
Most of the young workers here know what they're doing and why. But like most teenagers, they're a little vague when they try to explain it. The project director, Ed Clark, sees some very specific goals.
The first thing is to provide a good job for young people between the ages of 15 and 18 for 8 weeks during the summer. The other thing is to try to teach them a little something about the environment and Everglades ecology. I would say that we're really doing something that's valuable. Chickees are a very common structure on the reservation. They last a good 5 to 6 years before you have to re-roof them. And the poles, the framework, lasts for an indefinite period of time if they're properly put in. So we've provided a good number of services on the reservation that are long-lasting. And as far as the melaleuca work is concerned, that's a perpetual problem. There is no real answer right now, scientifically, for controlling them here in this country. So what we're doing is really a battle of containment there on the reservation.
There are 500 YCC camps in the United States this summer. At this one, half of the 26 youngsters are Indians from the 3 Seminole reservations in South Florida. The other half are non-Indians from Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. The group is a carefully mixed balance of boys and girls, Anglos, blacks, and Hispanics. For the last 8 weeks, 5 days a week, they've all lived and worked together at this primitive camp on the reservation. They've cleared out swampland, improved the chickees they sleep in, and built new ones. They've learned to live with no electricity, no phones, with Jiffy Johns and cold showers that come from water barrels on the roof. It's a far cry from life in the city, or even a modern roadside campground. And most of these youngsters agreed to a whole summer of it before they had any idea of what to expect.
How far is Boynton Beach from here?
I didn't know what to think because, like my teacher just signed me up and he didn't tell me what was going on.
Well, when you got out here, then you must have found some surprises. What was the thing that surprised you most?
Nothing.
No?
Nothing. Nothing.
What did you have to learn to be able to live out here?
How to keep mosquitoes away.
I didn't know at all. I just signed the paper. We had applications. We just sent them in.
Well, they warned you that it was going to be pretty primitive and kind of rough. Weren't you worried about it?
Yeah, I was worried. I was nervous.
For many, the biggest challenge was learning to sleep in a hammock 6 feet off the ground.
It's pretty comfortable. I fell out the first night I slept in there, but...
What happened when you fell out?
I was getting up the ladder, I got in, and then it flipped over and I was hanging upside down, and nobody would catch me. They were all standing there looking at me. And then that Gloria, she caught me and got me down. I didn't fall to the ground. I was just hanging upside down.
What do you think you're learning?
How to survive.
If somebody just stuck you out here, could you survive?
Yeah, I think so.
What would you do?
I don't know. I don't know what would I do. I don't know.
We don't take them out and teach them how to hunt or how to recognize all the edible plants out there. There just isn't the time for that. And also, it's not an aim of the program itself. But these enrollees have learned how to function in an environment that's very alien to their own. And I think that in itself is a valuable experience.
The cost of this valuable experience for the taxpayers was $52,000. The enrollees themselves made $556 apiece, the minimum wage for their summer's work. The rest of the money went for the camp's 6-person staff, food, transportation, and supplies. On the whole, the federal government seems pleased with the YCC project's contribution to improving federal lands and reducing teenage unemployment. And the enrollees, they've had an experience they'll never forget.
What's the worst part about it?
Worst part? Well, mosquitoes, you know, like insects that bite, you know. That's the whole problem, really, just trying to get to sleep, you know, by them insects.
Bathrooms.
Waking up at 6.
The cold showers, that's the worst thing.
Cold showers?
Yeah, ice cold showers, and that water smells. That pump water.
What does it smell like?
It smells like rotten eggs and sulfur.
What's the best part?
Best part? You know, to be around to do what you want, you know, not exactly do what you want, but it's feel like you're roaming on your own almost.
Going swimming.
Really?
Yeah.
It's all right. I wouldn't want to live like this for the rest of my life, though. It's all right for the summer.
I think the biggest thing that the enrollees themselves have learned is how to live together. When they first came out there, you could see that some of them, well, were a little distrustful of each other, maybe even resented others, because we have Indian kids, black kids, white kids, Mexican kids. We have all races living together. And the little frictions that may have been there before just don't seem to be there now.
The YCC camp at Big Cypress was established at the request of the Seminole tribe. The tribe plans to ask for another group next summer, and also a year-round young adult conservation corps camp with slightly older enrollees.
And now Gary Craven has a report about a meeting he was invited to attend recently. Right from the start, though, he knew it was not going to be your ordinary meeting.
Windy. Here. Hokey Pokey.
Here.
Bobo.
Here.
Wabbit.
Hop along.
Barco.
There it is.
Janie.
High Pockets, Ding-a-ling, Go-Go. Now that's not your usual attendance roll call. But then this is not your usual club. These cut-ups belong to the Miami Clown Club, and they come to monthly meetings and charity events to do just that, cut up. There are 50 or so people who get together to seriously pursue the absurd. The art of clowning is something you have to work hard at, to change from yourself to that spirit you want to be.
Now, if everybody does makeup, they'll find that one side of their face, they can feel the bones in it, and they can follow the lines around the bones.
There's white-faced clowns, and then there's August clowns that don't use as much white. They use more of their skin flavor. Then there's the hobo clown, where it's all black. You know, this is different types of clowns, and I think it's the nature of the person. Now, I like to choose to be the little poor soul. I would like to come in under my audience, and I would like to do something for them, and I would like for them to respond to me. Until pretty soon they realize that there is a nature or a spirit about it that's good, and they would like to achieve, or they'd like to say, hey, that's neat.
All these folks see this club as a chance they thought they'd never have to do what they've always dreamed of. Several of the clowns do work professionally, parties, parades, and such. But for most, their work is a way of giving, and that's all the reward they're asking. You seem awful shy sometimes.
I am. I'm pretty shy for a clown. I hide behind my makeup.
Do you really?
Yes, I do.
Are you more comfortable? Maybe?
Yeah, it's like a whole different person, and it's another outlet of free expression, especially dealing with children.
From a grandmother to a father-daughter team, from businessmen to students, philosophical to casual, these folks all come together for a reason they can't explain.
It's hard to explain to someone who's not a clown the feeling inside of a clown. It's like you're a born ham, sort of, you know, and you have this feeling, you know. It's just something you can't bring out. It's something you have, and you have that feeling that you want to go do this thing.
This day, their president, Dan Kratman, had arranged a free visit to the cheerful campus of the Haven School for the Mentally Retarded in South Dade. For the children here, it was a wonderful visit from the colorful faces they dream of.
Would you rather have a short-legged giraffe? Yes. A short-legged giraffe? Yes. A short-legged giraffe.
But after a while, it was hard to tell who was enjoying this visit more, the kids or the clowns. And that was the answer we'd come for. What more beautiful way to spend a day than by bringing smiles to the faces of children?
We live in a pretty rough world today, and people need a lot of love, and they need a lot of attention. And I think the clown is something special in this particular time.
What else did old MacDonald have? A pig, and a pig says what? Oink, oink. All right, oink, oink. Here we go. Oh, MacDonald